Condition reports. Every time I go to a cars convention or any other thing, that's always a subject. It's always the consistency of a good condition report. And even within the auction industry, they can't even get it right within their own family because they don't. They just all write them differently. And and there's so many different types of condition reports. You got the banks and the lease turn-ins. They want this thing, every door ding to be noted. So sometimes they go back to the customer for excess wear and tear. Versus us, we just want a condition report to paint the picture for us. We're not there. We don't see the car. We want to be fair to our customer, but we want to be smart about what we're buying. We understand it's a fleet lease car and it's probably going to have an average of $300 to $400 of normal wear and tear, door dings, that type of thing. You know, so I think really the true condition report is nothing more than a storyteller. It's just painting a picture, so you know what you're selling, we know what we're buying, and we know what we're selling also. Now, the question was also, how much does that affect the price you pay? To me, the normal wear and tear and all that's nothing more than painting the picture, and it doesn't affect the price. You have flood damage, you have hail damage, you have totals, you have previous paint work, yes. I mean, anybody in their right mind had two cars sitting side by side, same year, make, model, everything. Miles, one of them had been painted and one of them had not been painted. This one's worth more. I mean, it's just kind of common sense.
Doesn't it depend on if it's raining or not?
It depends on if it's raining. They're all worth a ton of money.
They all look beautiful.
Wow, thanks for that. We talked about a little bit about the how the mileage effect. Obviously, the miles do definitely affect the value of a car. If you've had more miles, it's not as worth much. Well, less miles, and it is difficult to.
What was that you said? I'm sorry.
It's the more miles obviously is worth less than lower miles in the marketplace and in the funding market. You know, in the finance market too.
So what more miles are you talking about? Like 75,000?
Yeah, I've always, and this is probably old school thinking too, but I've always thought every 10,000 miles the car depreciates $1,000. And that's always kind of been my rule of thumb without.
I like that. That's how we get to our 5,000 here.
But there's a difference between a 78,000 miles and an 82. It's that 10,000 mile threshold. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Is it minimum? I think it's probably partly minimum.
And when you hit that 100,000 mile mark, that's dramatic.
Well, when it comes to that 100,000 mile mark, there isn't a book out there that actually gives you any kind of a value.
Right.
Everybody will say, okay, 100,000, 150,000 vehicles worth the same. So there really isn't a true good benchmark. It's whatever the market is for anything, you know, for the 125, 150, 175,000 mile vehicles. It's kind of, you know, you got to know your markets for it.
You do. You have to know your market, and you have to know who your customer is, because on the finance side of things and the service protection plans, they'll only underwrite certain miles and certain cars even. So you just got to take all those things into factor, and you know, there's so much information out there on life cycle analysis, and you know, when should I sell, and at what miles should I sell. I mean, to me, you know, if you could all have your fleet and sell between February and July, you're probably going to maximize everything. Even though I talked about the subprime being the last quarter of the year, but that's just kind of the sweet spot. We see the market go up and even level off in maybe late summer, but after that you really run the risk. Now, the reality is a lot of times the OEMs will come out with, or used to, that you know, fleet incentives or early buys and that type of thing. So they want to sell cars as soon as they come off the production line, but you just have to be careful. Does it hurt you on the back end? So, what kind of conditioning should I do? That's really portfolio specific also. If you've got a 200,000 mile truck that you run into the ground, I wouldn't do much.
You got one of those? $600.
Yeah. If you've got rental car fleet, normal fleet, you know, that type of thing, and you do upstream your marketing, I think money is well spent if you're going to sell to employees, and for a couple reasons. You'll get more money for it, and you'll stay out of harm's way for arbitration, and it's a good program that if it's a word of mouth program. So we do a lot of employee sales, and they'll say to their other employees, this is a good buy, it worked out well, it was maintained. So, you know, the type of reconditioning is just to whatever your fleet is.
Do you have the ability to disclose the maintenance? In other words, if you say, you know, all the maintenance records are available for this vehicle, I mean.
We do with certain customers. Yeah.
That would be a.
Yeah. Yep. We do. And we do an awful lot of online auctions to employees, and certain customers have that information. All the leasing companies have that information. So I think, yeah, I mean, I think just same as a condition report, it's whatever you can do to tell a story of the life cycle of that car, it will maximize what you get, but it also keeps you out of harm's way, because this is a kind of a, you know, well, I'm going to sue you world nowadays.
Yeah.
You know, someone trying to get up, circumvent the situation. But yeah, I'd say the more information that you can disclose, absolutely.
Well, you know, based on all the history that I had when I started, they had vehicles at our plant location that we would sell. So the employees got great money for those. Even my dad brought a truck in from Ohio, and he's like, I can't believe I just sold it for that. We had a little employee paper, and you could sell your personal cars in it.
Oh, really?
And then we sold our fleet cars. And then I think because of litigation and everything else, I think sometimes management gets afraid to
Yeah.
open it up to all the employees, which
Right.
is too bad, because they're all asking me, oh, can I buy a company car from you?
Yeah.
You know, that type of thing. So we stay away from employee sales because of that.
And I don't want to make this commercial, but we,
No, that's fine.
we flip all the titles into our name, because
Yeah.
the customers that we do employee sales for feel the same way. And actually, there's very few states in the United States, so if you don't have a dealer's license, will allow you to sell more than 5 or 7 cars a year. So
Yeah.
if you're going to have an employee sale program, you can do it in certain states, but you're better off just dealing with the company, the third party that gets away from, this was, because the companies are deep pockets, and they're more apt to go after the big pocket companies rather than us. And so we handle all that, flip the titles, do all the paperwork. So.
Yeah.
Because that's what we come up with. We don't want to do that because we don't want to be in a car business, and HR doesn't like it or legal doesn't like it. So
Yeah.
we
Now Anita's ears are burning, aren't they?
Manuals, key fobs, anything that you can leave in the car when it comes to end of term or to remarket need to be in there. Probably more in the upper end world, but the key fobs and the technology and all the things that go along with cars nowadays, very expensive. If it comes back with 1 key fob, or started with 2, it's a lot of money. I think a smart auction, we did a repo, smart auction, I mean not smart auction, but a smart car, and because it was repo, it didn't have any key, and I think the key was $1,000. It's like some goofy number. So it just, again, it tells a story of what the car is. You're better off if you can maintain all the paperwork and equipment, you're going to get it back, and it's just it's an easier sell. So.
Well, going back to the maintenance history, and it's been a little while, how effective is that, or do you have the opportunity to disclose that and show the maintenance history when you're running things through auction, or is that more so beneficiary when you're talking about, you know, other remarketing channels?
I would imagine the physical auction, they don't do
No.
that. I'm not sure about OVE and smart auction and open lane. I don't know. We only do it because we're selling employees, but.
So the impact having that as well, I just kind of, you know, setting everybody's expectation. Okay, well, you know, that works on this side of the world, just not.
Yeah.
It's irrelevant on this side of the world. So.
I think it's less relevant on the dealer side
Yeah.
because they have their own shops and they're going to check the car out and.
Well, they have mandatory safety inspections they have to go through still.
If you pay for it, yeah. But I think if you go on to consumer, like we're getting ready to launch a cross-selling of employee sale cars to all our companies, and so the more information that we can gather and the better intelligent decision we can make and stay out of harm's way, because we don't want to be in harm's way.
So what responsibility does a fleet manager have for disclosing those things?
I think the fleet manager has a lot of responsibility, personally, especially it depends on how you're remarketing, but if you're marketing to a wholesaler or an auction or whatever, especially with the online world, and you don't disclose certain things like frame and, you know, things that are arbitratable, then you're running the risk of someone buying that car in Denver, Colorado and moving it to Missouri and then saying, wait a minute, this isn't the car you told me it was. Then you're going to pay freight both ways and any expenses. So responsibility, or maybe it's not responsibility, but just a good judgment call is just disclose what you're selling.
But other, if you're in self-insured, it should show up as a record anyway, shouldn't it?
The company we had that I've talked about, CarMax, before, self-insured. So that information still gets there because they get their information from body shops and things like that. So.
Well, we had a situation like that where we had one of our vehicles that had frame damage, at rear end, really a crazy frame damage, if you want to ask my opinion, where they just ran into the hitch of the vehicle and it bent the tabs on the hitch, and they called it frame damage.
Yeah.
Which was kind of ridiculous, but we're self-insured, and it's still, through the inspection process, they could see that it had been repaired, and that those tabs.
We get it all the time.
They were frustrated and tried to get more money out of the vehicle.
We're seeing more of it with transportation companies tying down the car too hard. And I forget what it does, but it
Tears the holes in the frame.
Yeah.
never been wrecked. Never been wrecked.
Sure.
Just transported and just the tie downs get pulled down.
Yeah.
Frame
Yeah,
down.
broken tie down is usually cause for listing the vehicle for frame damage.
Yeah.
If we have one for a dealer, we end up diverting it, we buy it back.
Yeah.
Then it goes through a closed sale with a disclosure.
Yeah. Parking levels. I mean, there's a lot of things that.
Usually the farther they move west, the more your chances of frame damage because they're on the rails longer. They just have trains.
Well, that's wow. That's
If
interesting.
it's short, if it's something from Detroit to
Yeah.
Cleveland, I mean, there's usually not the issue because
Yeah.
it's either trucked or it's not by
Also-
rail. But if they're by rail, usually.
Aftermarket installations that go through the frame rail as well, like we have some that drill the holes down through the frame to put in a battery box and hold a desk. Those also, we have to call them frame damaged vehicles, even though they've never been in an accident or anything, but it's compromised the integrity of
How
the
do you
safety.
how do you determine when you're bringing a car through if it has frame damage?
The NAAA guidelines are very specific.
Does someone check that?
Yes, we have a full mechanical inspection where we go through the entire frame.
We put it on
with
lift.
the entire vehicle. So we do a full inspection of the vehicle,
Every vehicle. that's
every
run
single
through
one that
the
goes through.
Yep. And it really shows up on arbitration too. We have very, very little arbitration because I'm telling you, she's selling cars, several. Sold one in Florida the other day. And I'll tell you what, if this car is not called right, you got a major problem. We probably would never bring it back to Colorado, but you're still paying the freight, $500-600 freight. So we're all about total disclosure because it's not important for us to sell something we don't represent, right? Because it's going to come back and get it. And you get a reputation of selling, bad cars.
Yeah. It's basically a visual check, no alignment rack, no special.
Right.
Right.
Unless we have a question, then we take it somewhere else.
Yeah, if there is obvious damage to the frame horns or to the frame, and the indicators are there, the tire wear, the misalignment, it doesn't drive right, then we would ship it off to a frame shop where they have the lasers and they have that they can check it. But if all the indicators are there, most likely that there is frame damage.
Now, do you call frame when you have a quarter panel that's been pushed in?
No,
You don't?
no. But we do call it a previous repair,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
So have you heard stories where fleet managers themselves have been held responsible?
No, I have not. I have not. But it reminds me of a story from years ago. I was talking about driver reimbursement versus having a company car. And there was a company, this guy from a bank told me years ago, he said company was sued that had a driver reimbursement program because they didn't do their due diligence of the person having their own car, making it roadworthy. So, but they were on company time, so it was their responsibility to make sure that driver, even though we're just giving them X number of dollars per month as a driver reimbursement, it's their responsibility to make sure they're in a safe car. So I thought that was, whoa.
How did that case end?
I think that the person that's challenged it won.